So much anger. So much mindless violence. Alan Curtis walked in one day wearing a birthday hat and holding an action figure. He sat down next to me on the couch, absorbing my stare but refusing to acknowledge it. He was clearly going to win this if this started, so I caved immediately and said, "Okay, where did you go? I thought you were going to the arcade." He just stared blankly ahead, leaving several seconds of dead air in between my question and his response. "Pfft, I did, idiot. Try that again. What's with the accessories?" He looked down at his winnings and felt pride. The pointed topper adorning his filthy scalp was the grease icing on the dandruff cake. Wondrous things had been done. Oh, this? Yeah, I crashed some Asian kid's birthday party. Such blunt indifference. A thick layer of machismo con Curtis loomed overhead, and I knew that it was going to dictate the course of our conversation, but I couldn't help myself. It was a slow day. He walked into the kitchen, and we raised our voices as the discussion continued. Occasionally, he'd pop his head out from around the corner to speak. When I asked if his actions were absolutely necessary, he cackled like a real sinister asshole and said, "Yeah, absolutely necessary. I made my presence felt in a big way, Brutus." "And they just let you do this? Hello, welcome to my country. What were they gonna do, turn down a child? Are you kidding me? Who'd be the monster then, huh? Tell me that. Riddle me that, fat unemployed Batman." No, I took all those stares in stride, every last one of them. Look here, Brutus, look. I never took my eyes off the prize. Jackpot! He had his hands up to his face, looking in between them with one eye closed, like he was locking on to an invisible target. When he said jackpot, he jolted his hands, one shot, one kill. Pumping his right fist slowly, victoriously, he bit his lower lip and grunted in sync with the gesture. Wrapping up his freak display, he powered through his juice box and crushed it before throwing it violently at the floor. Wow. It was honestly all I could muster. To say that Alan looked satisfied would be like saying that Ron's clothes are a little snug. He was like a man who had just had sex with a really beautiful stripper, cocky and overzealous. "Let me guess, you're impressed, right?" "Hardly. I just didn't know where his sudden hot-headedness came from." He explained that taking an Asian kid for his best birthday present does fucked up things to a man. He lifted his head and shouted, "Fucked up!" as loud as he could. Rubbing his forehead and eyes like he was beat, he looked around, sighed, and asked if it would kill me to clean this place up sometimes. I motioned around the room for him. "I did clean. I spent all day cleaning, actually." Still unimpressed. "Then explain this." That little SOB turned his juice box upside down and squeezed as hard as he could, wheezing all the while until a very small amount of juice dripped onto the floor. He crumpled the juice box further and threw it back down. Point made, I guess. I don't know. "Come on, Alan Curtis, what the hell? This place is a pigsty, Brutus." I only stared at him with disappointment for a moment before returning my attention to the television. He held his stare, though, long after I looked away, offering out his fat little fist as an attempt to reconcile. "Pound that shit, kid. I know you want to. Donate to my foundation. You've got it, and now I need you to give it to me. Alan Curtis?" He mocked me with his trademark chip-tooth grin. "Brutus Curtis?" There was a long pause before I spoke again. "You stink like a dead animal. Get away from me." He moped down the hallway, and the next hour or so was peaceful. When I went to check on him, his room was empty. Ron's room was too, as well as the bathroom. This was not going to end well for Alan Curtis. Sure enough, I found him, asleep on my bed. Alan Curtis, awaken. He did so, sitting up like he'd been summoned from the dead. He glared at me. I asked him what he was doing in my room, prompting a finders keepers defense before he collapsed back onto the mattress. I asked him again, maintaining a cool tone, surprisingly, and was naturally met with explosivity and aggression. "Geez, because Rondellis repurposed mine and released a barn cat in it, and now the cat is under my sheets and attacks me when I go anywhere near my bed. So again, finders are keepers." Wrong answer. Alan Curtis was officially up to here. Now keep in mind you're reading this, so you'll have to visualize that I'm gesturing up above my head with my hand. Oh my God. I'll go sleep under the bridge with the dogs, waiting for you to join us here in the 20th century and realize how things work now, here in the world of tomorrow by your laughable understanding of it all at least. I disregarded the boy pig's struggles with centuries and how they work and instead got pedantic about his bridge visions. Alan Curtis, not all bridges come equipped with stray dogs. Why would you seek out conditions that are worse than they need to be? He just stared at me and breathed really heavily, so I continued inching along looking for that sweet spot where he flips his shit and loses his freaking mind. I'm starting to wonder if you've ever even been under a bridge. I doubt you have, really. It takes a certain kind of G. Just petty enough to do the trick. I am going to lose my freaking mind! Yes, you've got the bagel and you just earned the cream cheese. Lay it on thick, Big Daddy. Don't you think that you're being a little brash? Alan was wiping his face cheeks of pissed off tears when his street rat survival instincts kicked in and he pandered for sympathy in the middle of his fury. Don't worry, I'll have plenty of little rashes when I'm sleeping amongst the dogs under that bridge that I mentioned a little earlier in this conversation. I really entered dick mode here. Again, Ellen, sleeping with filthy animals is a decision that you're choosing to make. Also, people don't yell during a conversation. They yell during an argument! Dear friends finish each other's sentences from time to time. Yes, but arguments take place between two or more parties, Alan Curtis. This is just a really sweet, brave guy getting yelled at by his friend. Alan screamed like an animal and barged out, slamming the door behind him. I could hear things being smashed in the hallway. He should have taken a breather. He was too hot. Instead, he stormed the living room and wound up rapping fine cinema with Ron. A red flag should have gone up for that gross, sweaty bear. He knows that when Alan starts a conversation with you about one of your interests, you should not engage in that conversation because it is a trick and some terrifying psychological trap. The boy is an idiot who can't pronounce his own name correctly most of the time, but when it comes to manipulation and sickening emotional abuse, he's in his element. Ron was blinded by the allure, and of course the short-term gains of a quick and easy grilling session, and overlooked the bigger picture. The boy had spun his web, and now he had himself a big fat flatulent fly. The following is the actual confrontation that took place as I heard it through my bedroom wall. Let me get this straight. You're telling me Travolta would take Martin Lawrence? Alan Curtis was full of piss and vinegar and wanted so badly to get his feet dirty with Ron's blood and guts. I'm so happy that you finally decided to join us in this conversation that you and I have been having for 10 minutes or so now. It's so nice of you to stop by. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Rondellis needed a moment to gather himself. Everything started so hot and rapidly. He was left with his tits flapping in the wind as the boy pug plunged his fangs in deeply. You are kidding, right? Because I'm hearing this, but I'm just not believing what I'm hearing. Are you kidding me? Look at my face. Does it look like I'm kidding? I'm sure he pointed at his face, like Ron needed it for reference. Well, it certainly doesn't look like you're being very serious. We're notorious for taking the easy way out of things. Ellen wasn't about to be drawn into petty shit talk, but Ron ran his drills. It's pretty hard to take you seriously, what with that old snaggletooth. The boy worked the body. Yeah, laugh it up, because you have no argument. Trapped, Rondellis enacted nonsense and confusion, but to no avail. What argument? Are we having an argument? Exactly. What argument? There is no argument. We're sitting here yelling at each other over who we feel would win in a street fight between John Travolta and Martin Lawrence. It's a joke. Ron ignored his small foe. Hey, never mind. Listen to me, Alan Curtis. No. Rondellis repeated himself, ignoring Alan's refusal as well. Listen. Alan relented and shot the beast an irritated what? There was a long pause. Are you listening? His words were acknowledged with an impatient head nod probably, and the Lord's name taken in vain several times. The fatter one asked his question with all the conviction of a defense attorney cross-examining the star witness. Did you see Wild Hogs, Alan Curtis? Of course I did. You know that. You took me to see it. Tim Allen, he was great. Rondellis corrected the boy. The film, yes, it was great. Alan Curtis spoke very clearly in defense of his previous statement. He was great. I loved him in it. And you loved him in it. Ron caved. I did, yes. It was only a matter of time before Alan Curtis took his sentiment too far. It was a great film. The critics loved it. Ron wanted to help his little buddy, but the best he can offer up was a faltering, well. Ellen was quick to finish the thought Ron so carelessly threw out there. Well, this critic loved it. Tim Allen is one of the great American actors of our time, of any time, really. Yes, I know, Alan Curtis. I had to hear all about it on the way home from Cinema 8. Cinema 8? Oh, the boy knew Cinema 8, Advantage AC. Rondellis was unaware of the trap he had wandered into. It was only a matter of time before the jaws closed and the menace was digested. Yes, Ellen, Cinema 8, where I took you to see Wild Hogs. Do you remember? Cinema 8. Oh, I remember Cinema 8. There was a chilling distance in his words, and Ron likely returned an uneasy glare. Suddenly, he was back, rejuvenated and confident. So great, we're in agreement. Travolta would kick Martin Lawrence's happy ass all over the place. Great. Ron Dallas couldn't believe his ears. What? No! Alan continued. Any given day, any given time. In your fucking dreams, Alan Curtis. Mountains of Molatine madness blew his top. The boy was in control of his helpless roommate and sought total annihilation. Ah, dreams. Yes, you should keep dreaming, loser, because that's all you've got. I was stunned. Alan stuck to what I imagined was his game plan and lit the fat bastard up with tenacity. Ron accepted that Alan had won the war of words and instead opted to focus on the facts. There was no earthly way that Travolta could or would ever beat Martin Lawrence in a street rules brawl. I put that down. I would die for my beliefs tonight. Alan was anything but impressed. Oh geez, not this, not the hardcore lyrics. Dare me, bet me, dare me. These were the pleads of a desperate animal. He continued, If you win, I die. What's not to understand? I muttered my sentiment in almost perfect unison with the boy. That's ridiculous. Ron elaborated. If Martin Lawrence succumbs to defeat, he'd succumb to the blade. Again, Alan and I spoke in near perfect unison. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say, Rondellis. That's funny because last time I checked, you were the dumbest thing you've ever heard me say. He was running on empty. There was silence and what I imagined to be intense eye contact. Alan spoke first. Hey, Rondellis, didn't you suck an usher's dick behind Cinema 8 for tickets to see Georgia Rule? There was an even longer moment of silence before Ron surrendered to his much more experienced adversary. Alan kept his indoor voice, though I wouldn't say he handled his victory with much grace. And I just won. Piss off. Just like that, it's over. Fuck you, Alan Curtis. I won. Georgia Rule. Please just shut up and fuck off. I heard a familiar puffing sound. Alan was blowing on his fingertip like it was a smoking pistol. He whispered his next words so I couldn't make anything out, but I'm sure he was just repeating Georgia Rule to his victim in antagonizing fashion. Rondellis was done. That's it. I'm out of here. Brutus, bike ride now. I was ready for war and already on my bike as I entered the living room. Yes, please. A few months ago, Ron had found the quintessential homeless bike. It was a rusty 10-speed with bags of cans tied to the handlebars and different colored tires, white and aqua. Understand that I'm not making fun of him or his bike. My bike is pretty much the same thing, but the tires are both black. They do have different rims though, so it's not too high class. I have a basket strapped to the handlebars with a radio built in. It's the tits. Our ride saw nothing out of the ordinary. It was pretty nice actually, but on the way back home a bum flagged us down in very animated fashion. He pointed an aggressive finger at the bike Rondellis and his mass had distressed beyond repair, shouting, demanding, Is that my bike? Is that my bike? Of course this was happening. He then pointed to Ron's hand. And are those brass knuckles? And would the fact that there's blood splattered on the bike that eerily resembles the splatters on my clothes explain why I can't remember shit from the past week? Ron started to speak. Well, but I cut him off. Week? Ron, you've had that bike for months. The bum was reasonably incensed. Whoa, what? Shaking my words out of his head to keep himself focused on the issue at hand, he resumed his line of questioning. And is that my hair in your pocket? You freak, I'm missing this huge patch of hair and I'm thinking, what the hell? As it turns out, you took it. God knows why. What is your problem, asshole? The fat menace locked eyes with his street slime foe. I wanted something to remember us by. The bum recoiled and told Ron that he was sick. I agreed. With little to no warning, Ron went in for seconds. He pounced on his prey like a wild animal. I fled the scene, followed for a solid 2 blocks by their screams. An hour or so later, Alan Curtis and I were sitting on the curb outside of the apartments when the fat bastard staggered up, breathless, clothes ripped and covered in blood. He landed some clean shots, showed a lot of heart. He's obviously been working on his stand-up, and his ground game was always solid. He got in some good ground and pound, but a few up kicks to the jaw and penis changed things real fast. Real fast. I clarified. You resorted to dirty tactics after instigating a fight with a homeless man, and you got handled for your troubles. Well, Brutus, I shut it down. The conversation was over. No, you attacked his penis with your feet because you were getting manhandled. There must be something in the water that makes these idiots want to beat up the homeless, because Alan Curtis pulled the same kind of shit later that day in an unrelated attack. I noticed some dried blood crusted around his hairline as well as in his ear, and when I cranked his head around, confirmed both ears had been bleeding. The typical back and forth ensued, the kind of coercive conversation you have with a child when you're trying to figure out why they're hurting. They dodge questions, frequently shut down or tear up, afraid of getting in trouble. It's a whole big thing. It's a mess. Well, yeah, I got to enjoy one of those talks with the boy, and in the course of the blubbering, runny-nosed madness, learned that Alan Curtis had strangled a hobo. This wasn't some act of self-defense. Self-defense doesn't strangle the homeless while sporting big crazed eyes, gnashing teeth, and bulging neck and forehead veins. The works, as it's known in some circles. Don't look for those circles, FYI. You wouldn't like what you find. He screamed in the face of the hobo while he was strangling him. It was wild. You're mine! You belong to Alan Curtis now! He lifted his fist toward the heavens and brought it down swiftly, punishing the street rat's skull with a brutish clubbing motion. While lost in his thoughts, reliving those horrible moments, he unconsciously fit himself with a satisfied smile. Oh, you better believe it, honey buns. I was with him up until that last part. What? It was as if he had forgotten that I was there, speaking with him. Wait, what happened? Startled and out of sorts, he wiped at his ear, and his hand came back bloody. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Alan Curtis, why is your ear bleeding in so heavily? I asked with justifiably urgent curiosity. Returning to his thoughts, he finished work with the hobo and climbed off its motionless body. The bum's chums de la bums if you will, stood there, eyeing the boy, one nervous, one angry. Alan approached the angry one like a hotshot and laid it on thick. What are you gonna do to stop me? Before Grumpy Gus had a chance to respond, Alan shouted, "Hi-ya!" launching a headbutt into his chest area. Alan immediately collapsed, throwing his hands into the air on the way down. Grumpy Gus, who was standing with one hand in his pocket, looked like he just took a bullet. His free hand, which was holding a cup of coffee, chucked it skyward as his arm flailed wildly, loosely. He hit the ground butt first, with his other hand never leaving his pocket. He looked mildly shaken by the fall. The only hobo left standing glanced around for witnesses before taking Alan's shoes off his unconscious body and fleeing. The head-butted bum just watched, still seated, and probably pretty confused by what had just happened. Alan laid there unconscious and snoring loudly for over an hour. When he finally found his way home, Barefoot Alan and I got into it over the words to a System of a Down song, and I wasn't even mad because we had a difference of opinions. I was mad because we were arguing over the words to a System of a Down song. Without trying to make too much of the situation, I assured the boy that the song said, "Spaghetti meatballs." "Trust me," I said. "You're way out of your element in these parts, Alan Curtis. It's embarrassing." Alan grabbed his big melon head and shouted at the top of his lungs, "He sang clear as day, Spaghetti Nissan, oh my God." I had none of it. Bush League, Alan Curtis, you're a Bush League hustler. Go peddle your wares someplace else, you filthy animal. Rondellis interrupted the conversation to hit us with dog shit, no doubt. To be honest, I think you're both wrong. Alan Curtis was taken aback, and I threw my hands in the air. I was not about to be told what was up by this fucking idiot. Oh, because I forgot that you're the Grand Wizard of Armenian diplomatic affairs, right? Ron and I looked at the boy with matching expressions of confusion and dismay. Ron spoke in a cool tone. "No, I'm just using my head. Neither lyric makes sense within the context of the song." That upset Alan, who dismissed the conversation in its entirety. Pfft, same thing. I stepped in and told Ron to beat it. "Mind your business. Go home, Roger." The boy threw some salt in the wounds. Seriously, your room's that way, moron. You know what, you guys? I'm tired of sitting in my room and listening to this bullshit. Remember that time that Alan Curtis confused the Dalai Lama with Dolly Parton and he kept referring to his big delicious tits? This is up there with that level of stupidity. Those Asian guys at the mall were getting really upset, Brutus.